Biden talking about Putin called him a war criminal. It was the harshest condemnation of Putin's actions from any U.S. official since the war in the Ukraine began 3 weeks ago. The shift from the administration's previous stance came after an emotional address to Congress from Ukrainian President Zelensky, who aired a video showing Ukrainians suffering amid Russia's onslaught. Zelensky asked American lawmakers again to help defend itself, including a no-fly zone. Biden's response is he cannot do a no-fly zone. And the reason he cannot do a no-fly zone is if you do a no-fly zone, the thinking is you are now in direct combat with the Russians. Mm-hmm. And that now, as President Biden said, I think I'm paraphrasing him, that now, ladies and gentlemen, is World War III. So the United States and NATO is doing everything in its power to help defend Ukraine without actually confronting the Russians. I actually saw a Gallup poll came out today that said 75% of Americans believe that the United States should do everything in its power to defend Ukraine, short of having a no-fly zone. 19% of Americans said that they should do everything in their power to support Ukraine and have a no-fly zone, even if that includes the potential for war with Russia.
Wow.
So you are looking at a country at this moment where 94% of Americans who live in the United States of America support what Biden is doing, what NATO is doing. 94%. That's almost the entire country behind everything that NATO and the United States is doing right now. Whether you agree on having a no-fly zone or not having a no-fly zone, it's almost unanimous in the United States of America that we should be doing everything within our power without escalating to support Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. Now, other world leaders, including British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, said last week war crimes were being committed. Now, the definition of a war crime is when you intend, one of the definitions, there could be more, I'm not an expert on it, but I know one of the definitions of a war crime is when you intentionally target innocent civilians. So when an army intentionally targets innocent civilians, rather than fighting a war army versus army, that becomes a war crime under international law. Mm-hmm. There may be other war crimes as well, but that is one of them. The Russians have bombed hospitals, maternity wards, shelters where children were living.
Yeah.
The question becomes, was it intentional? At some point, you can argue because you don't know what's in the person's mind. If it happens over and over and over and over again, you can argue that at some point it's got to be intentional. If it happens on a one-off instance and all the other instances it has not happened, well, you can make an argument that, sometimes missiles go astray.
Yeah.
But if it happens time and time and time and time and time and time and time again, which it appears is what's happening in Ukraine right now, and the reason it's happening is because the Ukrainians are fighting back and Russia hasn't made much advance. So they're now going scorched earth.
Does it have to be missiles, or can it be like the soldiers?
It could be soldiers, anything.
But they've been killing people.
That is correct.
That right there seems pretty intentional.
That's why Biden, that's why Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and that's why the United States Senate asked for the entire United States Senate, all 100 senators, has asked for an international investigation into war crimes. In Poland last week, Vice President Kamala Harris called for international investigations into war crimes. And Biden delivered his assessment. The White House said the administration's investigation into war crimes is also continuing. Yesterday, talking about war crimes, a theater in Mariupol where civilians were sheltering was bombed. They also had a building that they marked on top with huge letters. I don't know how they did it with paint or whatever. Children are living here.
Wow.
and that building was bombed,
Wow.
and children died. Other children, you saw pictures coming out of the rubble. You know, sometimes when the war is not going your way, you go after the civilians. You try to, you know, if you go after enough civilians, perhaps, I guess the thinking from the generals would be that they would lose their will to continue to fight if you're, you know, but I don't see that happening at this moment. Today, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin also again reiterated the United States is not going to enforce closing the skies across the Ukraine. President Zelensky is doing a round robin of speeches to different parliaments and congresses and senators around the world. Yesterday, yes, he's a smart guy, and he's also an entertainer, so he knows how to get a crowd up and support him, obviously. So yesterday, when he was giving a speech before Congress, he was using Martin Luther King Jr. and the struggle that the United States went through for liberty and justice, and also pointed out to the senator that if you want to be the leader of the free world, which is what the United States claims to be, you got to walk the talk. You can't just talk the talk. I'm paraphrasing what he said. In Germany today, when he was speaking to lawmakers, he addressed the German parliament, and he referenced the Holocaust in Germany. He said, "Every year politicians say never again. Now I see these words are worthless. In Europe, a people is being destroyed." Thanks for watching. For more Bradshaw Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.